Welcome to Cheater Confessions. Let's get started with today's story. It all started when Emily, my wife of 10 years, began acting distant. At first, I chalked it up to stress from work. She had been staying late at the office, traveling for business frequently, and seemed exhausted whenever she came home. One evening, I couldn't hold back anymore. "Emily, why are you always late?" "We barely spend any time together," I asked, frustration creeping into my voice. She sighed, dropping her bag on the couch. "Jacob, I've got too much work to handle right now. My boss is very strict, and there's so much riding on this project. I promise, once things settle down, it'll get better." I wanted to believe her, but the distance between us kept growing. Eventually, all her hard work paid off when she got a promotion, and I was proud of her. We celebrated the night she got the news. Dinner at our favorite restaurant, wine, laughter. It was perfect, or so I thought. One evening, while I was scrolling on my phone after dinner, Emily's phone buzzed on the counter. It wasn't unusual, except that she was nowhere to be found. Curiosity got the better of me, and I glanced at the screen. It was a message from her boss, Michael. "Same time tomorrow?" I felt a lump in my throat. I knew he was her boss, but the tone of the message wasn't professional. My mind raced, but I put the phone down just as Emily walked in. "Why is your boss texting right now?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. She froze for a split second, but it was enough. "Oh, nothing. He was confirming tomorrow's meeting," she said casually, then quickly changed the subject. "Hey, let's watch that movie we talked about?" I nodded, but the seed of doubt had been planted. Over the next few weeks, Emily's behavior grew more erratic. More late nights at the office, secretive phone calls, and a distance that I couldn't bridge. Something wasn't right, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being kept in the dark. One night, Emily came home late again, looking tired and a bit off. She didn't even greet me as usual, just walked straight to the bathroom and shut the door behind her. After a few minutes, I heard the shower running. Curiosity gnawed at me, but I stayed in the living room, trying to ignore the nagging feeling in my chest. When she came out of the bathroom, she was wrapped in a towel, but I couldn't help but notice something. There were bruises on her hip, dark, purple marks. I froze, staring at them. "What happened?" I asked, my voice shaking with disbelief. Emily quickly covered herself up and avoided my gaze. "Oh, nothing. Just bumped into a table at work," she replied, brushing it off as though it was no big deal. "I'm fine, really." But I could see the unease in her eyes. Her explanation was nonsense. I knew it. And that only made my suspicion grow stronger. That night, after she fell asleep, I made a decision. I couldn't ignore the growing doubt anymore. I picked up her phone from the bedside table and unlocked it. My heart raced as I scrolled through her messages. At first, it seemed normal, chats with friends, work-related texts, but then I found a conversation with Michael. The tone was too familiar, too intimate. The messages were flirtatious, full of inside jokes, and something more. "I can't wait for our trip," one message read. "I missed you," another one said, followed by a heart emoji. "Does your husband suspect anything?" "No, I don't think so," Emily had replied. "He's too busy with his own work." My heart pounded in my chest as I scrolled through more of their conversations. With each message, the truth became clearer. The small talk, the flirty comments, the late-night chats. It wasn't a one-time thing. It had been going on for a long time. I scrolled further back, my hands shaking as I dug deeper into their messages. The timestamps showed their affair stretching back for months, then years. And with each new message, my stomach sank lower. It wasn't just a brief fling. They had been hiding this from me for 3 years. 3 years of lies, of stolen moments, of a relationship I knew nothing about. They had built a secret life together while I'd been living in the dark, completely oblivious. I sat there in stunned silence, unable to comprehend what I had just uncovered. How could she do this to me? How could she betray me for so long with someone so close to our lives? That night I couldn't sleep. My mind was racing, the weight of the discovery suffocating me. My marriage, the life I thought we had built together, was over for me. The trust, the bond, it was shattered. I tossed and turned, unable to escape the images of the messages, the lies, the betrayal. The next morning I couldn't stand being in the same house as her. I couldn't even look at her without seeing the lies in her eyes. I needed answers. I needed to know how to end this. So, I drove to a lawyer's office, trying to steady my hands as I walked in. I spoke to the lawyer about the divorce process, explaining my situation in a numb, detached voice. We discussed how to protect my assets, and more importantly, how to make sure Emily wouldn't get anything. She didn't deserve a cent. After all, she'd taken everything from me already. Later that day, Emily told me she would be heading to a business dinner after work and that she'd be coming home late. I didn't believe a word of it. Something inside me snapped. I needed more proof, something irrefutable. So I followed her. I drove to her office and parked across the street. I couldn't believe I was doing this, but I had to know. I had to see with my own eyes what she was really up to. I sat there watching the entrance, waiting for her to finish her shift. Time seemed to drag on as I waited in the car. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the office lights flickered off one by one. Emily stepped out of the building, and to my shock, she wasn't alone. Michael, her boss, was walking beside her. They talked as they made their way across the parking lot. My heart pounded as they both got into his car, and without thinking, I started my engine and followed them. I kept a safe distance, trying to stay out of sight. They drove to a fancy restaurant downtown. I parked nearby and watched as they got out of the car together. To my shock, they embraced in a long, intimate hug. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I pulled out my phone and snapped a few pictures, hoping to catch something concrete. After a moment, they broke apart and walked into the restaurant. I hesitated for a second, but then I followed them inside. I stood by the entrance, scanning the room until I spotted them. Emily was sitting across from Michael at a dimly lit table. They were laughing, leaning in close to each other. It wasn't the behavior of a boss and his employee. It was something more. I quietly snapped a few more pictures, each one confirming the sinking feeling in my gut. I couldn't look away. I had to wait. I had to know what they were really doing. I waited outside for a while, my mind racing with questions, wondering what would happen next. Finally, they came out of the restaurant, still talking and laughing. When they reached his car, they embraced once more, and then, to my horror, they kissed. I froze. My entire body went cold, and I couldn't believe what was happening in front of me. I took a few more pictures, my hands shaking with anger and disbelief. Then, they got in, and once again, I started my engine and followed them. They pulled up to a hotel, and on their way to the entrance, they kissed again. My stomach twisted in knots. This was it, the proof I needed. I pulled out my phone one last time and took a few more photos, capturing the moment they shared outside the hotel. I knew I couldn't take any more. I had everything I needed. I didn't follow them inside. Instead, I drove home. The drive was a blur, my mind replaying everything I had just witnessed. I had the proof now. The truth was undeniable. She had betrayed me. No more questions, no more doubts. It wasn't just an affair, it was a full-on relationship. But I wasn't done. This betrayal couldn't go unanswered. I wanted her to feel what I felt, and I wanted everyone to know exactly what she had done. I thought about the next step, my mind already racing with ideas. It came to me in an instant, the perfect moment for revenge. Emily's father's birthday party was in 4 days. It was a big event. Both of our families and a few of our close friends would be there. It would be the perfect setting to expose her lies, her cheating. Everyone would know. She would have nowhere to hide. For the next few days, I acted normal. I didn't say a word about what I had discovered. I played the part of the loving husband, the one who had no idea about the betrayal happening right under his nose. I kept my composure, even though inside I was burning with anger and disgust. Finally, the day of Emily's father's birthday party arrived. I knew this would be the moment everything changed. We both got dressed, and I watched her, pretending nothing was wrong. She was as cheerful as ever, oblivious to what was coming. We arrived at her parents' house, and the usual chatter and greetings filled the air. Both of our families were there, along with a few of our close friends. I kept my distance from Emily, though she seemed completely unaware of my internal turmoil. She went around greeting everyone, happy and carefree, but I couldn't stop thinking about what was about to happen. The moment came when I could no longer wait. I stood up, walked over to where Emily was standing with her parents and some guests, and I cleared my throat. All eyes turned to me. I felt the tension building in the room, but I wasn't backing down now. I raised my glass, the silence settling as I spoke. "I'd like to make a toast," I said, my voice steady but laced with anger. "To trust. It's the foundation of any relationship. Without it, nothing truly matters. And trust is something I thought I had with Emily. But tonight I've learned that trust means nothing when it's broken." I paused, letting the weight of my words settle in the air. Emily's eyes widened in confusion, but I knew what was coming. Without a second thought, I reached into my pocket, pulled out my phone, and connected it to the TV. The screen lit up with the first picture I had taken of Emily and Michael outside the restaurant. The room fell silent as the photos flashed across the screen, images of Emily and Michael, kissing, laughing, and embracing. Each photo was like a knife to my heart, but I didn't care. I wanted her to feel the weight of her betrayal. "Is this how you spend your time when I'm not around?" I asked, my voice steady, even though my insides were a storm of rage. "Is this how you treat our marriage?" Emily's face turned pale as she saw the pictures, her smile dropping instantly. The room was filled with murmurs, and I could see her trying to grasp for words, but none came. Michael's name slipped from her lips, but she said nothing to defend herself. The silence in the room was deafening. Her father looked confused, then angry, as he saw the photos of his daughter, the woman I had loved for 10 years, with her boss. Her mother stood in shock, unable to comprehend what was unfolding before her. I stood there waiting for Emily's reaction, knowing I had just exposed everything, her lies, her betrayal. She had nowhere to run now. Finally, Emily's voice broke the silence. "Jacob, she stammered, looking between me and the guests, her face flushed with a mix of panic and guilt. I didn't give her a chance to speak. 3 years, Emily? 3 years of betrayal? All those late nights, those business trips, those excuses, every single one was a lie." Her eyes filled with tears, but I couldn't bring myself to feel sorry for her. Not yet. It wasn't like that," she whispered, her voice shaky. "Michael and we never meant for it to happen. It just did." Her father, now visibly angry, turned to her. "Emily, is this true? Is this how you've been treating Jacob?" His voice was harsh, his disappointment clear. "I can't believe this." Emily didn't respond. She just stood there, her face pale and trembling, as her mother sat frozen, speechless. I couldn't hold back anymore. "You don't get to explain this away," I said, my voice rising. "You've destroyed everything. The trust, the love, the years we spent together. All for what? For him?" I pointed toward Michael's image on the screen, the man who had been so close to us all along, pretending to be her boss, but secretly taking my place in her life. She looked down, unable to meet my gaze. "I'm sorry," she whispered, but I could hear the emptiness in her words. "Sorry?" I repeated, almost laughing bitterly. "Sorry doesn't even come close to what you owe me. You've destroyed our marriage, Emily, and you don't get to act like it's just some mistake you can apologize for and make it all better." I turned to face the room, the people who had been watching the entire exchange unfold. "I wanted to let everyone see the truth tonight," I continued, my voice sharp, "because Emily isn't the only one who needs to know how deep this betrayal goes. This is who she really is, and this is what she's done to me." "It's over, Emily," I spat, my voice cold and full of finality. "I'm filing for divorce." Emily stood there, completely defeated, no more words to say. I could see the shame in her eyes, but it was too late. Her actions had already spoken louder than anything she could offer now. After that night, everything changed. I filed for divorce the next morning, and with the evidence I had, the process was quick. Emily fought for everything, but I wasn't going to let her get away with any of it. I made sure to protect my assets, and with the proof of her affair, I got what I deserved. But I didn't stop there. I already had the evidence, photos, messages, everything that exposed Michael's role in the affair. I sued him for his actions, and with all the proof in hand, he was forced to quit his position. It wasn't just about getting back at him. It was also about making sure he couldn't hurt anyone else the way he had hurt me. The divorce was finalized soon after. I kept the house, my savings, and everything I had worked for. Emily received a settlement, but nothing more. Her family stood by her, but they couldn't undo the damage she had caused. I moved on slowly, healing and reflecting. I didn't rush into anything new, but I knew I would never allow myself to be deceived again. Emily ended up with Michael, but that was no longer my concern. I found peace in knowing I had done the right thing. Trust was gone, but I had learned the hard way. Life moved on, and so did I. Thank you for watching.